Hey, I'm Di McQueen, licensed clinical social worker, family and addiction expert. I'm here with Dr. Brian Jackson, my longtime cohort who specializes in the field of addiction. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction.
Di and I have worked with addicts, alcoholics, and their families for over 30 years combined. Our podcast and coaching programs focus on families who have a loved one suffering from addiction. Our experience has been that this disease affects families as much, if not more, than the addict or alcoholic.
Is your world spinning out of control? Are you codependent? Are you experiencing worry, loss of sleep, and difficulty concentrating? If so, you're in the right place. Brian and I have both personally lived it, learned it, and now we're going to teach you tools and techniques on how to get your life back that you thought was shattered by addiction.
Okay, let's dive in.
Brian and I are so excited to introduce to you our new sponsor, Lakeview Health. They are a wonderful residential treatment center. Whether it's the family member who is looking for a place or the addict or alcoholic themselves, this would be the place that we would refer them to. Brian, you have many years of experience with Lakeview.
Yeah, Lakeview Health is a center of excellent addiction treatment. They take an evidence-based approach, medical approach to treating this complex brain disease. They hold the Joint Commission's Golden Seal, and they were voted one of America's best treatment centers by Newsweek magazine. They deliver dual diagnosis, gender-responsive, and trauma-informed care at their gorgeous facility here in Jacksonville, Florida. But they do see people from all over the world do come here to Jacksonville to go to treatment at Lakeview. Their levels of care include medically supervised detox, which a lot of people do need. Then they stabilize them in a residential rehabilitation and partial hospitalization program. They have board-certified physicians, master-level therapists, and they work to address the unique needs of each patient. So in other words, it's not a cookie-cutter program. They help individuals build skills for long-term sobriety. So if you or someone you know needs treatment, please visit their site at lakeviewhealth.com. We also have a hyperlink on our website at familyandaddictionexperts.com where you can just click and get some information about Lakeview Health. And Diane, I think you have a number for people to call if they would like to inquire about treatment.
I sure do. That number is 888-480-3799. That's 888-480-3799. Give them a call. Hey everybody, welcome back to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. Today I'm joined with my partner in crime here, Dr. Brian Jackson, and we're going to talk about integrating back into the family after recovery. So they're finally in recovery, so everything should be perfect, right? Maybe not so much. In an ideal world, that might be true. But newly sobered loved ones really have a difficult time turning their attention back around to the family. And even though the family thinks that, hey, they're in recovery now, so the next few years are going to be focused on making amends to us, right? I wish I could tell you that were true. Unfortunately, it's not. The most important thing that the addict needs right now is to focus on themselves and to deal with their sobriety. So it's going to be important for us to give you some hints and understanding of what happens within the family. So I think the first thing that we should note is that we have, a lot of expectations about what this newly recovered addict or alcoholic is going to be able to do. And in fact, the idea is they need to focus on themselves, and we need to slowly get back into the integration of how a family system is going to work and the changes that occur. So Brian and I are going to give you, 10 ideas on things that are going to be helpful for the family to focus on rather than focusing on the addict or alcoholic, and helping them, be able to do what they need to do to get well. And in time, it will all come together. I know it doesn't make sense at this moment, but it's really important that the family let the addict or alcoholic focus on their sobriety first. And it's one of those things where the family goes, oh my God, we've been doing and doing and doing for so long, and we got to do more. And the answer is yes. In fact, there is something, because this is not just a problem for the addict or alcoholic. It's the reason why we call it a family disease and a family illness. Everybody is affected. So, Bry, good morning. How are you? I hope you're
I'm
well.
good. I'm good, Di. Thank you. Good morning. This is a great topic. Well, number one, it's fantastic if somebody goes to treatment. That the family's been waiting for them to go to treatment. They went to treatment. They decided to go, and now they're in a state of abstinence, if you will, and now they have to learn how to get into some good recovery. But it's so important, I think, for families to learn as much as possible about addiction. Not necessarily active addiction. We already know what that looks like, but understanding that even though the loved one has gone to treatment, they're now back and there's more healing that's going on within inside their bodies, their brains. For the alcoholic, it typically takes a whole year now, the research says, for their brain to get back to a real healthy state. The good news about that is it doesn't take a year. They're improving as they go along. So they're healing. They're still healing, and we kind of got to let go of the idea that, oh, they went to treatment and now everything's great. So you all have been dancing a certain way as family members. Everybody's played their role to try and navigate when the person was in addiction, and now everybody's got to change. They've changed, and so the way we interact with them will change as well. And that's where it's going to feel a little awkward for the family members. But the good news is, in the long run, we all want everybody to get into a healthy way to interact with each other. So it's real important that you understand that. I mean, we have resources on the family uh, survival kit, which is on our website, that you can learn a little bit more about addiction. I don't know that we have anything specific to what it's like afterwards, but that's why we're doing this podcast, and we'll probably put something up there in terms of the integration for the family of the newly sober loved one. That's really the great news, is that the person is now sober, but there's more work that needs to be done, um,
Right.
and it's worth it. It's worth it. Okay.
Absolutely. So after you kind of discover about, learning more and more and more about the addiction, right? The next thing that we really suggest is that the family themselves connect with other people that understand. So peers, right? People that have like minds and understand what the family members are going through, right? So all of us do much better when we can relate to another human being that has been through an experience like ours. And most of us in early recovery or family members, we are so embarrassed and ashamed, right? We don't want to necessarily talk about it. But what happens is we level the playing field when we find out that there's other people in the world that have experienced things like this, and that we're not alone. And there are tools and techniques that we can do. And we learn it, there's Al-Anon, there's Alateen, and there's ways of learning new tools and techniques through therapy, through family treatment, through other things that we can do to understand and find out that there's people out there that share similar experiences. We find better quality of life. We understand that our level of stress comes down when we actually, kind of meld into the fact that we are not alone in this journey, and that other family members have experienced this. So, Brian, why don't you talk about, what it's like to go through some family therapy sessions? I think that that's really important, right? Maybe even before they hit an Al-Anon group, or something of that nature.
Well, yeah, it's real important, I think, to attend family sessions to get some insight as to how to, again, the integration of the new family member, or the new family member. I want to call them a new family member because it's a new sober family member. And again, back to everybody's role is different now. But the importance of family therapy is to get tools and techniques to be able to make the changes that are necessary for you where you don't feel uncomfortable, because it will feel uncomfortable. And if you find that you can connect with other people in Al-Anon or through family therapy with somebody like us, or somebody else as we coach you through this, it's key. And other things that you can do as you try and get the family back together is, one suggestion is maybe that you prepare meals and eat them together, that you eat together as a family. In this crazy world where we're all running around in 15 different directions, somebody's grabbing a hamburger here and somebody's eating there. But a good icebreaker would be to try and schedule meals for the entire family if that's possible, and sit down and, talk about anything and everything other than recovery, so that the person doesn't feel like the magnifying glass is on them. Um, so, it doesn't stop at the dinner table, but any kind of family outings that you guys can do together would be really important. Recovery doesn't define the person, just like addiction doesn't define them. There are people with, you know, needs and wants and things that they're interested in. So it's so important that the recovery and how they deal with it, with their continuum of care, is up to them. You can be supportive in many ways, but I think just getting back to as much normal behavior together as a family is key.
Exactly. The next thing we sort of suggest is for the family to manage their expectations. And that's a big, tough nut to swallow, right? Because as we stated in the beginning, there's so many things that these folks have done. Maybe they've been lying to you, maybe they've been stealing from you, maybe they've, yelled and screamed and carried on in such a way that we have all these expectations of what this person is going to be like when they finally get into some recovery. And so, it's not unusual for the family to have unrealistic expectations. And, it's very difficult when the therapist or whomever says to the family, keep the focus on yourself. And that's like deer in the headlights, right? They're like, what are you talking about? Because they've been so hyper focused on this other person for so long that to keep the focus on themselves means it's very difficult. And we set up a series of expectations that really put us into a place of being very frustrated and probably not being able to be very compassionate for the person. Yes, they've done a lot of things wrong, but again, as Brian stated earlier, it takes some time before the addict or alcoholic can settle down and settle into the recovery process. Just staying sober, for family members to understand the difficulty and how hard that is. I go, just imagine that you're carrying around 1,000-pound weight every day hanging around your neck. And for the person that's trying to stay sober, they're carrying around this heavy weight, which is called addiction, right? And then on top of it, they're carrying around this other heavy weight called guilt and shame, and they don't really understand what to do with it at that time. They'll learn in time, but the first thing is we got to get their brain to settle down. And just the mere fact of the cravings and the how horrible they feel. And yes, even though some of that stuff is self-induced, it's still what it is, right? And we believe it's a disease, so therefore we follow disease concept on this stuff. Maybe the person gets going pretty good and then they have a relapse. And therefore the family goes, oh my God, here we go again, right? It's not a failure. If we cannot, if we can kind of help them get through that as, these things happen, let's move on. Instead of, reciting like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? We hope that doesn't happen, but in fact, it might happen. So it's really important that, as we begin to focus on ourselves, that we find things. And Brian, you probably can talk about that, right? That helps the family stay in their own personal space and their own personal joy.
Yeah, but just to kind of talk a little bit about what you said right there is
Sure.
really important, I think, Di, because when the when the loved one finally goes to treatment, I think everybody just gets so excited, and has this expectation. Okay, everything's going to go back to normal now. This person is going to be fine. And then the person gets home, and the family members can sometimes be like, "Oh, is this going to happen again? Could this happen again?" And I would caution people from, constantly asking the loved one, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" Because at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. You can see signs and symptoms of what you saw before, and ask them if they want to spend some time talking together or whatever. And then also for the addict, it's real interesting for an alcoholic, for people that have been using for 10, 20 years. And you ask them, hey, are you okay? You look, or have you been drinking? And they get very aggravated. So it's, very understandable that you feel that way because you've been living that way for decades, and now they're sober for a month, and you shouldn't be asking them about that. So back to the family
Yeah.
therapy, that
Right.
where you're going to be.
That's what the addict believes. I'm like, it's normal. We
Yeah,
also
like, why
escalate
are
to
you
the addict.
asking me that?
Yeah.
I haven't done anything wrong, but so the expectations, you need to minimize those for yourself and for the addict. Remember that it's a disease, and they need to be taken care of it on some sort of a type of continuum of care. But the family therapy, getting together with other people who have been through that experience of a loved one coming back home, what it's like. So hearing it from your peers is really important, so you can get the same perspective or more perspective. They may be further down the road. They might be a year down the road with a person who stayed in recovery for a year, as opposed to somebody who's just newly come home to your house, and you're like, oh, what do I do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? What should I say? What should I not say? But it's so important to just be able to get on with your life and take care of yourself. And hopefully the family will reunite, and the person who has, come back home, is connecting with other people who've been through the same thing, and they're working on the recovery, and they're having fun in recovery, and realizing that they don't have to drink or drug to have fun. So
Exactly. So that kind of leads back to right where we're going, like stay in your lane and focus on yourself, and right, give yourself
exactly.
the opportunity to have some joy. Because for a long time, most of us, at least in when I was on the family side of life, I kind of forgot what joy even looked like. I mean, you get into such a negative mindset and a fear-based mindset that it's really hard to even think about staying in touch with my own personal joy. I didn't even know what the heck that meant, right? So, going back out and, doing the things that you love. If you're a photographer, go out and take some pictures, out in nature, hang out with a friend, go do some volunteer work. The things that bring you joy, hang out with your grandkids, do a new cooking project, whatever those things look like. Music, if you like to play in a band, go start playing in a band, right? Like, do the things that you do to enjoy the activities that can make you feel like you are whole and boost your mental health. Again, we're going to try to take the focus off of the addict and alcoholic and bring it back to ourselves, and that's really, really, really difficult when you haven't done it for a really long time, and maybe you don't even know what you like anymore. Well, that's even more fun. One of my favorite things to suggest to people is get, the alphabet out from letters A to Z, and put one thing that you haven't tried or you've always wanted to try in each letter, and go out and find out, do I like this or do I not? And I go, we do it on both sides of the fence, and it's really interesting to see what things people come up with and the things that they keep on their keep list, going like, wow, I never experienced that in my life. I didn't even realize I had all these opportunities. Meanwhile, what I've been doing is sitting home day after day after day, isolating from the world because I'm so messed up in my mind about fear from my addict and alcoholic. So it's really great to be able to bring that joy back into life. And there's other things, right, that people can do, right, B?
Yeah, well, the other important thing too is, I hear a lot of people, family members, say that they felt better once they knew where the person was. The person was in inpatient treatment, so it was like a deep breath, blow it out. Now I don't have to worry about where they are, what they're doing. There they are. And during that period of time, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, when they're in an inpatient treatment facility, family members will say, I was finally able to sleep. Whereas before my sleep was so disturbed, and was ruminating about, what's happening, where are they, what are they doing. Now they're home, and then we sometimes have that muscle memory where we go back to that type of behavior, and it's understandable where we have disturbed sleep. So it's just so important to get good sleep. Try and have a sleep schedule. Try and take care of yourself. If you don't get a good night's sleep, stressors are way more pronounced in your life. But it's time for you to get back in that routine of helping yourself stay in a good spot in spite of
Exactly.
whatever happens. Our hope is that, they're going to get involved in AA or NA. They're going to make friends. They're not just going to go to meetings, but they're going to have a new lifestyle. So, my saying always is that chess players don't hang out with hockey players. So now that they're sober, it's important for them to hang out with sober people and have fun. I mean, I've seen it over and over again where You can walk into an AA meeting or an NA meeting, and then there's 15 guys that will give a guy, their phone number, and invite them to do whatever, go play golf, go fishing, after the meeting, go get something to eat, have a cup of coffee. So once they start to connect with those with sober people, and you see that, I think there's going to be way more relief. It's not your job to help them in their recovery. It's up to them to do what they need to do for themselves to get a life back to some sort of normalcy. They're not bad people. They have this illness. It's not an excuse for some of the behaviors when they act out, but now they're not acting out and they're adjusting. They might be quiet sometimes. You're like, oh, what's going on? Or they may be. They went to the store, and you're looking at your watch, like, when what are they doing? Where are they? So we just want to get away from that same behavior that we had back when your loved one was in active addiction. So that's a huge adjustment for you guys, but one that I hope you can make with some of the tools and techniques and suggestions that Di and I are making for you.
Right. So in essence, what Brian's discussing is sort of letting go of the codependent behavior, codependency. And we can do that by just what we were talking about, finding joy in our own life, staying in our own lane, and sleeping well, right? Another one is exercise. And that is a really, really important one for a lot of us. To get some exercise, remember, we're releasing our own form of dopamine and we're making our body feel better. So these basic balancing acts of, good sleep, good eating, good solid day-to-day regiments that, we need, no different than what the addict needs, right? We need schedules. We need to be able to take care of ourselves in a way that we have done. And when we're rested, we're eating well, we're exercising. Guess what? Our mindset is so much better, and we're able to do what we need to do and learn tools and techniques. We go to our therapy session, we learn how to set boundaries, we learn how to stop enabling, we learn how to do all those things that we haven't been doing for a very long time. And a lot of us didn't even know that that was a thing to do. So again, it's really, really important that you get the help and guidance you need. It's one thing to see your peers and stuff, but I always suggest that seeing a private therapist is probably a good idea, at least in the beginning, because there's so much upset and anger and everything else that you need to get out and grieve and work through, that it's really important that you learn how to do that and that you are okay with it, and that people that understand can help you guide through that. And at the same time, help teach you tools and techniques of how to handle the stress, how to handle the anger, how to handle the boundary setting, how to handle, enabling and making sure that we're not doing that, and getting strength and resolve so that you can continue moving forward in a much stronger, different way. And so that we don't go back to the behaviors and everything else that got us into this loop to begin with. So I think that's really important. And lastly, every day there's things coming out, right? With new education, new advocacy on understanding how addiction works and what we need to do to continue working in that realm. And I think most family members, and I'll let you speak to that a little bit more if you want, which is, about how I think that when I got into it and understood a lot more about the whole disease, I was so much better able to cope and be kind and loving that I couldn't do before, because I didn't even understand exactly what was going on.
Right. And so, I think that the way we communicated and interacted, when the person was in active addiction, I think we did a podcast on react and respond. There was probably a lot of reacting going on,
Mm-hmm.
and frustration. So now, how do we have healthy conversations? How does the addict change? There's a saying around recovery that, you sober up a horse thief, and what do you have? You have a sober horse thief. And so the horse thief is now trying to make changes to get back to not doing that type of behavior. Not that, your addict or loved one was bad doing those things. So I don't know that that's a great analogy, but they had certain behaviors in the way they acted that they're now working on changing. I mean, for example, I've seen people that in early recovery will tell a lie, and they're like, why did I lie? It would be so much easier for me to just tell the truth. Well, they're so used to the way they acted and interacted with their family, where they were being less than honest. They were making up alibis and all that stuff. But they start to catch themselves and say, "There's nothing to lie about. I need to be honest and truthful." Um, so
And
that will
interestingly enough,
evolve
how
over.
many family members lied, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
that's always a big like aha moment when the family goes, man, I've been lying the whole time too. Um,
Right.
because we like to blame the addict for all of our bad behaviors. And in fact, the family members, the truth is, there's a lot of things that we also do that, as being both sides of that, I was like, oh man, I'm in conflict with myself all the time, going like, hey, wait a minute. I was doing a lot of the same things I was accusing the person of, because that's what we do. So we're learning new behaviors as well. And it's also the opportunity to speak up when necessary, but kind and lovingly. We always can do it when we're mad, right? So it's important for family members to learn. That doesn't mean we let the family, the addict and alcoholic get away with everything. What it does mean is we approach it differently now. If we need to say something, we say something. We say it kindly, we say it lovingly. But that also means we have, tools and techniques in place that we don't let them just get away with behaviors. We don't walk around on eggshells around them. We all learn to start to communicate rather than avoid, which is a lot of what we've done, right? I'm not going to say anything because I don't want them yelling and screaming at me. I don't want to get into it with them. You don't have to get into it with them. You're allowed to say what you need to say. And my expression is kindly and lovingly, right? We don't need to yell and scream anymore. We just need to make it clear what's going on here. And if they're living in your home, you get to set some rules if you want to. That's, your choice. So it's really important that we continue working on these new way of life between the addict, alcoholic, and the family member. It's very easy to look at what the other person is doing rather than looking at ourselves. And so Brian and I are going to keep asking you to pull it back to yourself and take a look at your own behaviors. What are you doing? What are you not doing? What things do you want to learn about? What things do you need to learn about? And remember that as much as they're working on it, you are also working on it, trying to understand how to get through this new water and navigate your way to a new course in life where everybody lives harmoniously. It's not an easy journey, is it?
Well, yeah, but it's a good journey.
It's a
It's much better.
wonderful journey.
Yeah, it's much better than the way it was before. And a lot of these inpatient treatment facilities that your loved one went to usually have some sort of family week or a few days. Hopefully, you attended, and they have probably provided you with different suggestions and resources that you can do to make this, transformation to this new way of life for the entire family. What we do is, every family is different, so we try and coach that particular family through the different issues that they have, and maybe there's somebody that's struggling with making the adjustment, and we can help you with that. So, but it's not just us that can help you. There's plenty of resources out there that can help you as well. So, recovery is a fantastic thing for the person who is well, but the family is also going to recover, learn how to recover. And we've seen beautiful, beautiful things happen over a course of, a period of time, and it will start to get better and better and better, and you will find your way. But you will stumble, you will struggle, just like with behaviors. And hopefully that's all signs of growth. That's all signs of positive growth, positive new interactions, catching yourself, learning that you want to be your true authentic self. Like Di said, you don't want to be walking around on eggshells anymore. You have a voice to say kindly and responding and not reacting. And, maybe the more family activities that you can do together that have absolutely nothing to do with drinking, drugging, whether they did, whether they didn't, throwing up grenades from the past, trying to get back to quote unquote normal, as a family, as a family, as a family. That's what we would like to see for you. A
Absolutely. We
healthy
love
family, a healthy family.
a healthy family. That's right. So if you want some help with a healthy family, feel free to reach out to us and ask any questions you like. We're at info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. And of course, you can always look at our website, right? Or our Instagram, Facebook. Our website is www.familyandaddictionexperts.com. We'd love to talk to you and love to help you in any way that we can. And we know this is a new and long journey, but a wonderful, wonderful way of life. And I would never turn back, ever, 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 ever. The things that I've learned in recovery are beyond something I can put into words. And my wildest dreams have come true based on the fact that I got into recovery and have lived a life of recovery. So thanks, B. I really appreciate all your insight today.
Yeah, and this topic, healing families shattered by addiction. So what we're talking about today is the family healing, in recovery and sobriety.
Right. And integrating back into, right? How
Right.
we all do that, how we integrate. All right, my dear, I will see you on our next pod. And until then, be well.
All right, Di, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining our podcast, Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with more important tools, techniques, and ways for you to focus on you instead of the alcoholic or addict in your world.
Until then, please go to our website, familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's familyandaddictionexperts.com. You'll also see links to our Facebook and Instagram pages. Please also, if you have any emails that you would like to send us, that's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. With any thoughts, feelings, questions that you may have for us, we would love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.